in a more direct or complete sense, instead of those who are actually placed the accused in detention. In this case, Your Excellencies, it was not Lieutenant Zane, it was not any of the other men, it was Captain John himself. Your Excellencies, if no further questions, I will proceed with my next submission.
So you are aware that in the town of Moot, there were several weapons that were recovered?
Yes, Your Excellencies.
So would that be a demonstration evidence on the part of the case that the soldiers captured those people as the incident may be an example of the
Your Excellency, the presence of those unexploded ordnance and ammunition in the town of Noble may have been enough reason for the initial gathering and detention of these people, but not for keeping them for 6 long weeks. Your Excellencies, that goes against Article 43 of the Geneva Convention, wherein it is said that as soon as possible time, the power that confines them should find to the best of their ability, all the facts included, and they could not just capture them in a blanket manner. The confining power should also make sure that each person who was confined is a threat to the security, and not just simply because they are citizens of the other country, as stated in Prosecutor versus Daniel Delawich for the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. Yes, Your Excellency. So, Article by Your Excellency are those persons who are no longer in combat, such as soldiers who have been wounded, those who have been taken as prisoners of war, sailors who have been shipwrecked, and those who have been injured or wounded and are no longer able to take part in the fighting, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, if I proceed to our next submission. Your Excellencies, we now proceed to the second charge, the war crime of willful killing. First element of the war crime of willful killing is that the perpetrator killed one or more persons. The prosecution submits that Colonel Joy was superiorly responsible for the acts of his men in the killing of these people at Camp C and Camp Q. In paragraph 2.19 of the facts of the case, it stated that Camp Q no longer exists and some of the prisoners have been executed. It is also evident, Your Excellencies, in the case of Camp C, wherein all those soldiers were massacred, killed by these soldiers directly under the command of Colonel Joy, of which he himself admitted that he was their superior.
Counsel, I just want to be clarified whether Lieutenant Zane is under the command of Captain Joy, or when Zane was the camp commander of Camp Q.
Your Excellency, Colonel Joy was the area commander of that place, which included the town of Noble, and included Camp Q. Lieutenant Zane was camp commander. Lieutenant Zane reported to Colonel Joy as is evident, since it was Colonel Joy who gave him the orders. If I may proceed, Madam President. The next element, Your Excellency, is that such person or persons were protected under one or more of the Geneva Conventions. As I have earlier said, those prisoners in Camp Q were civilians, farmers, and local townspeople who were simply gathered up because they were citizens of the opposing power and not because of any specific act that they themselves posed a threat to base them. And for the second charge of willful killing, that at Camp C, the same thing applies. Your Excellency, these people were people who were there for the clinic to seek medical treatment. They were there simply because they were driven away from their homes by the war that occurred both in the side of Outland and basement.
Can you give us the fact in the company that states that?
That's paragraph 2.23, Your Excellency, where the person in charge of the camp said that this is a refugee camp, there are no soldiers here. Thank you, Your Excellency. is that such persons or persons were protected under one or more of the Geneva Conventions of 1949. These persons were included civilians, men, women, and children, and even included the delegate of the International Committee of the Red Cross, Dr. Brown, and her interpreter. The next element, Your Excellency, is that the perpetrator was aware of the factual circumstances established with protected status. In the case of the prisoner's Capt, he was the one who rounded him up, so I have already discussed that. If I will proceed to the willful killing of those in Camp C, of course, Your Excellency, he was aware, since it was the person in charge of the camp herself who told them that there are no soldiers here. Even those soldiers who were dropped by the outland armored column were already acknowledged to be wounded when they were dropped there. And Colonel Joy himself said that if we knew they were dropping off wounded soldiers, we would not have attacked. The next element, Your Excellency, is that the conduct took place in the context of and was associated with an international armed conflict.
What is, Council, what is the, can you enlighten this point on the rank, the military rank of leader right?
Your Excellency, Leader Wright had no military rank. He was simply there as an observer to accompany the lieutenant.
He was, I'm sorry, what was that? Observer?
Observer, Your Excellency.
Did he not give command to Sergeant Pio to teach the prisoners or those civilians a lesson?
Your Excellency, Leader Wright had no part in the military chain of command. So even though he was there,
What makes you say that he has military rank?
Your Excellency, is there in the facts of the case that he was simply there accompanying them. When Colonel Joy was interviewed by the United Nations, when he was in the United Nations, he was asked about the religious beliefs of his people and all that. So he said that they simply respected the religious beliefs of all the other people, and they placed a high level of respect for their own religious leaders, especially in their country. But the religious leaders did not have were not there in any military capacity. Therefore, we submit that it is Colonel Joy himself who was the military commander, and not Leader Wright. We also submit, Your Excellency, that it was Colonel Joy himself who was superiorly responsible for the acts of his men, even though it was Leader Wright who incited them to kill these people. Since, of course, as the military commander, he knew, or he should have known, what the actions of his men were going to be, especially because of the presence of Leader Wright. He should have known that if anything were to happen, he was responsible. As a delegate to the United Nations, he was a commanding officer. He knew, according to Article 28 of the Rome Statute of this honorable court, that anything that would have happened in the normal course of events, he should have known what his men were going to do. So
that preclude him giving an order to Sergeant Pio and in the presence of Leader Wright that these people are not supposed to be harmed.
Your Excellencies, even if his men acted in contravention of this order, the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia in the case of Dario Krdic and Mario Turquez said that even though it is the subordinates who acted in contravention of the orders of the superior officer, it is the superior officer who should be held responsible for failure to control his men. It is also stated in Article 28 of the ICC statute.
Your submission that there was insufficient control, that Captain Joy did not exercise sufficient control.
Your Excellency, our submission is that regardless of the amount of control, he should have been responsible because these men were under his command. And the Article 28 of the International Criminal Court statute states that regardless of Colonel Joy's actions or orders, his men's actions are under his responsibility. So therefore, the prosecution submits to Your Excellency that he should be held responsible.
You're saying that he had effective ritual.
Yes, sir. Your Excellency, I see that my time is almost up. If I would like to summarize my submissions. If I may ask for a few minutes, please.
You may have a few minutes to wrap.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. So, Your Excellencies, we submit that Colonel Joy is guilty for the war crime of unlawful confinement and the war crimes of willful killing of the civilians at Camp Q and Camp C. There was an international armed conflict, and Colonel Joy was aware of the existence of this international armed conflict. His acts took place in the context of the international armed conflict, and that these victims were protected persons, protected under the Geneva Conventions. And Your Excellencies, that he was aware of the factual circumstances that provided their protected status. So, Your Excellencies, if you have no further questions, we're going to wrap up my presentation. Thank you, Your Excellencies. I shall now cede the podium to my co-counsel. I thank this court for its time and its indulgence. May it please the court.